And the documentary director John Wiley joins us now from Sydney. John, many thanks for your time this morning. This must really take you back. Tell us the story of how this was suddenly uncovered.
Well, it's an extraordinary story. It's the closing of a circle that's been, I've been travelling around for 45 years, really. I started my working career at the ABC as a trainee director, and part of my job was going down to the Opera House site every week to film the progress when it was still a hole in the ground, right through till the sales started to go up. But then I went to England. I sort of despaired of Australia when Utzon was pushed out. I really thought, that all the promise that the Opera House represented was being undermined, and so I went off to England, and I was still feeling very passionate about it. So I sold the idea to David Attenborough, who was then the head of BBC Two, that I come back to Australia and make a film about the Opera House, which I did. And of course, at the time, all of the wounds were really fresh, and the passions were high, and the documentary reflected a lot of that. And in fact, to the extent where after it was shown on BBC Two, it was subsequently destroyed, chopped up with a meat cleaver, and put in a rubbish bin, and I believe for many years to have been completely destroyed and unavailable. And then by some kind of miracle, just a few months ago, one of the researchers at the ABC working on the big website about the Opera House turned up this, what turned out to be a reject print of the film that had been misfiled and therefore survived its own little Holocaust.
Let's just talk about the chopping up at the first instance. Do you think at the time the Australian government was very unhappy about the fact that the BBC had actually made this documentary? Do you think they had pushed for it to be destroyed? I really don't know. The ABC certainly didn't want the film made. The ABC being a big player in the whole equation of the Opera House, because the ABC really wanted the big hall just for itself, well, for the symphony orchestra, and it wasn't interested in this dual-purpose plan that was the original plan. It had the big stage machinery put in, and I filmed them chopping that out with oxy torches, which didn't please Talbot Duck Mountain at the time. But I'm happy to say that the ABC's grown up a lot since then. Now, interestingly, the copy you found had no soundtrack, so the sound had been removed. Who was the original voice? Because I notice you have Bob Ellis now.
It was Bob Ellis originally. Bob turned up in London. I was just about to record the narration with a marvellous old Australian actor, Ray Barrett, who lived in England. But Bob turned up and camped on my sofa, and I thought, now if I gave Bob the job, then I could pay him, and then he could find somewhere to live.
Get rid of him.
But he was perfect. He rewrote a lot. You'll recognise a lot of Bob in the narration.
Yes, we did. Now, your father, remarkably, was part of the New South Wales government that, in fact, was making you so angry, with their opposition.
That's right. I had a rather complex relationship with the whole thing. I mean, on the one hand, my father was a member of the Country Party, which was just come into power with Davis Hughes as the Minister for Public Works, who was a virulent critic of the Opera House and the whole thing, and had used it to bash the previous government and win the election. I was sharing a house in Paddington with Lynn Utzon, the architect's daughter, and of course I had my own relationship with the ABC and with the filming down at the site. So all of these things were interacting in my in the task of making this film.
It is remarkable now, though, to have it, and I guess with it as such an iconic vision and image for our country now, it's hard to believe how people were so opposed to it.
Well, it should be a lesson to us, really, that what counts is quality, not dollars and cents. 90% of the stories, I mean, journalists should be ashamed of themselves, frankly. At least 90% of the stories on the Opera House were about the cost. I mean, it's really hard to find a story from any reporter that's about anything other than the cost of the building, which was all being paid by a lottery anyway. But the building ended up costing $100 million,
and it's now valued at sort of $4 billion or something of that order to the economy of Australia. So, you know, the real issue, and people ought to get their head around this, is quality. If the thing has quality, it'll pay for itself, like the Harbour Bridge or the Opera House.
John Wiley, your connections to this have been extraordinary. I'm sure it makes you very happy to have it back and restored. Many thanks for your time.
It's a pleasure.